So for our shared reading today, we are learning to select, navigate, and read digital text in order to locate and summarize relevant information. So the last few days, we've been able to identify the purpose of a text, and we knew that was to inform us about biomes. We were able to explore the digital text and navigate it using its features. So we're using like the swiping over to the next page. We're having a look at the blurb. We're having a look at the title page, the titles and the subheadings, and all of those bits of information that were helping us to navigate it. Yesterday, we looked at the structure of a text, and we were able to identify that it was a description, and it was using all of those signal words for a description, and it was describing the biomes, in particular terrestrial land biomes and aquatic water biomes. Today, we're going to have a look at our vocabulary, and we're going to use a variety of strategies to be able to read and understand unknown words. So if we have a look at this slide here, this is just a little bit of an anchor chart to help us when we're working today. So we know that we can use our outside the word strategies. So we're having a look at some clues around what's happening in the story. We can use antonyms, so words that are opposite to that word. We can use we can compare and contrast that word to different words. We can have a look to see if there's any embedded definitions in there. We can have a look at they've actually provided any descriptions or examples of the word. We can even look to see if there's any synonyms, words that mean the same thing. But we also can remember that we can use inside the word strategy. So we can have a look at the actual word. So does the word have any prefixes that have any particular meanings? Does it have any suffixes? Are there any root words? You know, what's the root word and then what's happening around that? We also know that we can use other resources. We can ask a friend what the word is. We can look around the room. If we're at school, we can use a dictionary. We can even have an online search with Google. So while we're thinking about those things, let's have a look at our text, and we'll keep coming back to that anchor chart. So we got up to latitude. So let's read about latitude. What causes the different biomes? One factor is latitude. Latitude is the distance north or south of the equator. Oh, I really like there. Did you notice that there? I was thinking to myself, what is latitude? And I could have clicked on that word, but it actually had an embedded definition. So it actually tells me that latitude is the distance north or south of the equator. But I'm stuck on that word equator. What is the equator? So we might be able to draw on our prior knowledge. Some of you might know what that is. But I'm just having a look at that inside the word strategy. And I can see that word equator or equate. And I know that when I'm equating something or something is equal to, I'm thinking about that it is, that word is equal. So when I think about an equator, I'm thinking that it's going to have something to do with being equal on both parts or within there. And then I'm just having a look at this image, and I can see down the bottom here is a caption, and it says the equator is where we find tropical biomes on Earth. And it's actually pointing to a line on the map that's in the middle, and I can see here that it says equator. So I can see that the equator is a line that goes through the middle of the Earth, and that's equal at the top and equal at the bottom. That's interesting. I wonder what, so the latitude is the distance north or south of the equator. So above is latitude, below is latitude, the equator. I wonder if I can find some more information on that. Let's keep reading. We measure it in degrees. In the tropical regions near the equator, there are no summer and winter seasons. I'm going to reread that. In the tropical regions near the equator, there are no summer and winter seasons. So I'm looking at the equator. I'm looking at those areas that are above and below. And I'm noticing that they're in green. Temperatures stay high throughout the year. In tropical rainforests, the continuous growing season allows for great biodiversity of a variety of species. Biodiversity. I'm not really sure what that word is. I'm going to go back to my anchor chart. I'm going to think biodiversity. I was thinking about an outside the word strategy, but there was nothing really there that was going to help me. But I know it is to do with biomes. So I'm going to jump into that inside the word strategy. So I'm thinking now of that word biodiversity. So let's break that up. So I can see two parts. I can see bio and I can see diversity. Well, I know straight away that diversity, there is a word in there, diverse. And I know that there's something is diverse and there's diversity. There is a range of them. I wonder what this word bio means. Now, I'm making a connection to the word biology, and I know biology is a study of living things. Study of living things. I'm just going to go back up here and I'm just going to check, and I'm going to Google search that. What is bio? Question mark. Bio. I'm going to put prefix. Here we go. The prefix bio implies of related to life of or living organisms. So if I go back, study of or bio is the life of living things. So if I'm thinking about biodiversity, so it's telling me, okay, straight away, put it together. There is a range of living things. Let's go see if I can fit that into my sentence. The continuous growing season allows for great biodiversity, a range of living things or a variety of species. I'm going to check and click on
biodiversity.
Biological variety in an environment as indicated by the number of different species of plants and animals, which are living things. Wow, great. Fantastic how I was able to use those inside the word strategies there and see those root words and those prefixes. All right, let's keep on reading. As we move away from the equator, the climate becomes more moderate. So if I'm thinking about moderate, I think that's telling me about in the middle. In the latitudes 30 to 60 degrees north and south of the equator. So if I look at the equator, coming back to this map's really helpful. 30 to 60 degrees, 30 to 60 degrees, or I can see north, I can see that N north and that S for south. So I'm noticing that they're a different color. We find temperate forests and grasslands. Most of the world's food grows in these regions. So I'm thinking about that word temperate, and I can see that base word there, which is helped by things like temperature. So thinking maybe that's talking about, so we're talking about here moderate. So maybe it's talking about if it's moderate temperature. So temperatures that are around the same. Let's check. There we go. Neither too warm or too cold. It's a moderate climate, which lacks extremes in temperature. Most of the world's food grows in these regions, and those I think regions means these areas. Far from the equator, near the north and south poles, the sun's rays are indirect and not as strong. In the Arctic tundra, there we go, there's that word tundra I was talking about on Monday. So tundra must be talking about the North Pole and the South Pole, the Arctic and the Antarctic. In the Arctic tundra, plants and animals are adapted to short growing season and cold temperatures. So that actually makes sense. If I think about my prior knowledge, you don't really get many plants or living things growing in the Arctic regions. You would get animals, but definitely animals that have been adapted to those environments. Whereas within the areas close to the equator where the temperature, and we know that biomes is talking about the area in terms of the climate and the temperature. So areas that have got more regular temperatures, that are areas where you're actually going to get more diverse, a more range of species and animals and plants and living things, which if we know, then is our sort of source of food. So that's really interesting. Altitude and precipitation. Altitude, the height of an object above sea level, also plays a role in determining biomes. Well, I really like that how the author has got that embedded definition. So we know that altitude is the height of something that is above sea level. As you move higher up a mountain, the temperature gets cooler. Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa sits just 3 degrees south of the equator. At its base, we find scrubland. Higher up the mountain, a tropical rainforest teeming with life. Yet higher, we find alpine tundra. And finally, at the top, a snow-covered rocky peak. So it says here, Mount Kilimanjaro is the highest mountain in Africa. There is always snow at its peak. So it's telling us there that the biomes is dependent on the altitude, and how high above sea level it is depending on what kind of environment you would find on that land. Precipitation. So I actually know prior knowledge that precipitation is rain, is another important factor in determining a region's biomes. Even when two areas have similar latitudes and altitudes, so remember latitudes, if we go back, is the area near the equator, and altitudes is how the level above sea level. So if they have similar latitudes and altitudes, their relationship to a nearby mountain range can cause them to have very different climates. On the windward side of a mountain, wind carries air masses up towards the peak. As the air rises, its temperature falls and it drops snow or rain on the mountainside. The air mass reaches the peak and begins to make its way down the other side, the leeward side or the other side of the mountain. The air warms as it descends and is much drier than the land on the wind side. So that's really interesting. So you could have a mountain with one kind of biome on one side because of the precipitation and the temperatures, as compared to the other side. That's really cool. All right, let's have a look at your task for today. So on Google Classroom, you need to read the passage of the text that's provided on biomes, and then you need to complete the word investigation task. To be successful, you need to be able to read a text and identify unknown words, and you need to be able to use inside and outside the word strategies to understand tricky words. So let's jump into our task for today. I'll just show you. Today is Wednesday. Here's our word investigation chart. This will be on your Google Classroom. So here's a piece of text from another ebook that I found that has some tricky words in there. So I want you to go down underneath here. And once you've read through it, identify those tricky words, write the word in here. Tell me, have you seen that word before? Have you not seen that word before? You just need to tick. And then you need to write what you think it means. So I think it means what? Because I use the following strategy. So you need to think about what strategy did you use? I used an outside the word strategy where I found the embedded definition, or the outside the word strategy where I was coming up with words that were similar, some antonyms. I used an inside the word strategy, synonyms where they were similar. I used an inside the word strategy where I saw the root word and I saw a prefix and a suffix. I may have had to have looked up what the prefix or the suffix meant, but I was able to use that to help me. So once you've done that, you're then going to actually Google the actual definition and write me the definition you got online, okay? So then you're going to repeat it. Go find another word that you found, write it in, whether you've seen the word before or not seen the word before. What do you think it means and why? What strategy have you used? And the definition, okay? So that's your task for today. When you have finished, make sure you come back and you do your 2 stars and a wish using the success criteria. So we are able to read a text and identify unknown words, to use inside, outside the word strategies.